It was the Civil War of 1862 changed the American workers' paradise. It was the first time there was income tax on American workers' income. But it was not until the 1930 16th Amendment to the Constitution make the income tax permanent to our American taxation system, basically. And since then, the top income tax rate is all over the map. If you look at after World War II, it was 90%, 90, and then it was lowered to 70, and in 1980 it was 50%. Obviously, currently in 2019, we live in 37% top marginal income tax bracket. But if you look at the average from 1930 until today, it is almost 58% top marginal tax rate. The primarily tax is the revenue generation mechanism for the government. And more we expand the government, more we need to tax to the people's income somehow. Either it is income or other types of the tax. But government has to generate the revenue somehow to fulfill some of the obligations the government has created over the period, like Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid, and some other public safety that we need to provide its own citizen. We pay the income tax. Okay, so there's a federal income tax we pay on our income. And as I mentioned, the top marginal tax bracket today in 2019 is 37%. But it's not only the federal government tax you, there are some other local government tax you as well. So there's something called is a state tax. So unless you live in a few state where there's no state tax, then you pay the state tax. And if you happen to be lucky to live in New York City or LA, now you are paying the city tax as well. So if you look at that one, LA, for example, the actual California, the state and city, it comes out almost 13%. Even New York, if you look at 11%. So that is on top of your federal income tax, which is 37%. Also, there are some other tax that most people don't understand it well. That's called the employment taxes, or as known FICA tax. FICA tax includes primarily two kinds of taxes. One, it's called the Social Security taxes, which is a 6.2%, and the Medicare tax, which is 1.45%. So say, for example, if you are working for someone, then you as an employee are going to pay 6.2 and 1.45%, and your employer is going to pay the equal amount of taxes for you to the government. Now, if you're self-employed, then obviously you are employee and you are also the employer, so you pay both the side of taxes. So that comes out somewhere around 14% taxes. And if you are into the higher taxes, there is some additional surcharge taxes is also included. So honestly, if you look back, we pay so many taxes, and I'm not talking about your real estate taxes. I'm not talking about your sales tax. I'm not talking about your excise tax. I'm not talking about your income. I'm not talking about your state and gift tax. There are so many other taxes we pay over and above income taxes. Future of American taxation system, or future of American taxes, income taxes in particularly, is very difficult to predict. But what we know is the history, and what we know is what is ahead of us, right? So history, we know that one. Historically, American income taxes has been way higher, and currently the average from 1913 today, it is 58%. Right? So even though we feel that we are paying too much in taxes today at the 37%, but historically, if you look at, then we are in a lowest income tax bracket, basically. Obviously, if you compare to some other developed countries, then we might be in the higher taxation countries. But if you look at the history of the US taxation, then we are at the lowest taxes in the history. And what is ahead of us? So we have heard, and that everybody knows about the US debt. It's a 22 trillion. And I was at last World Economic Forum meeting at Davos, Switzerland, and every heads of state or every other dignitary talks about the U.S. debt, how the U.S. debt is mounting to the 22 trillion. Now, people knows about the number that is 22 trillion, but that number is misleading number. That is not the real number. Actually, if you factor in the unfunded liability of the U.S. government, and if U.S. government were to be a public company, then according to the GAAP accounting standard, you need to include all of your unfunded liabilities as well. So if you factor in budget deficit, if you factor in Social Security, if you factor in Medicare, then the U.S. debt is well over 100 trillion. That is $1 million per taxpayers in America. With this book, you will learn the few techniques to how to reduce your income taxes, right? Now and future. Because that you don't only want to reduce your taxes now, because you can reduce your taxes, and if you defer your taxes, then you have to pay when you're going to take out. So obviously you want the lower tax burden today, but the whatever savings you accumulate over the period, whatever the nest egg you build, you want to make sure that your nest eggs will not be taxed at 90% if U.S. history has to repeat all over again, right? So you want to create some tax-free income as well, and this book will give you the trick. This book will give you the information how to create tax-free income or tax-free investment down the road for yourself and for your families.